This is the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Good evening, I'm Sabrina Brown. Thank you for joining us. An historic day on the island of Grand Bahama as a memorandum of understanding was signed, sealing a tripartite arrangement between the government of the Bahamas, the Grand Bahama Port Authority, and the Inter-American Development Bank. Stakeholders say this spells good news for Grand Bahama as this MOU provides a framework that could maximize sustainable growth on the island. Shashina Roll reports.
Stakeholders are optimistic that the signing of this Memorandum of Understanding will help to stimulate economic growth on Grand Bahama. Minister for Grand Bahama, Dr. Michael Darville, explains not just exactly what this MOU means for the city of Freeport's private sector, but also its impact.
This is exciting news for Grand Bahama. I want to say that again, because we have done a large amount of work with our private sector partners. And so this is exciting news for us because it would pave the way for major upgrade in the city and much needed capital injection into our local economy. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, construction jobs.
Minister of State for Finance Michael Halkid is traveling to Grand Bahama for the occasion. He notes that there is creative financing available under the IIC and this partnership.
While this tripartite arrangement is merely an exploratory initiative, I am confident that the Minister of Grand Bahama and senior staff from the Grand Bahama Port Authority will provide excellent assistance to ensure that there are positive outcomes from this MOU.
Vice President of the Grand Bahama Port Authority, Henry St. George, says this demonstrates the possibilities that can happen when government and the port work together.
When the IIC team came to Freeport, we showed them as much of the industrial landscape as is humanly possible in 24 hours. What made us at the GBPA proud was that with each new licensee we introduced to the team, and with each new premise we toured, their enthusiasm for Freeport grew and grew. So today's MOU is also a reflection of the credibility of our outstanding licensees.
General Manager of the Inter-American Investment Corporation, James Scriven, says that they are grateful to have the opportunity to explore the enormous opportunities available on Grand Bahama. He says in doing so, they have met a number of companies and says that there are some promising deals that will happen by the end of the year.
As an institution, we primarily do not focus on small microfinance deals. We focus on medium to large term projects that have a trickling effect over the economy. IIC is not here to compete with the financial sector. We're over here to support and complement the financial sector by providing long-term financing as well as knowledge and technical support.
Shashina Roll, ZNS Network News.
The Minister for Grand Bahama speaking at the Rotary Club of Freeport's weekly meeting this afternoon. He talked about the revitalization of Grand Bahama and steps the government is taking towards realizing the new Grand Bahama. Minister for Grand Bahama Dr. Michael Darville addressing members of the business community on the government's accomplishments over the past 4.5 years. He says when this administration came to office in 2012, high on the agenda was to establish a committee to review portions of the Hawksbill Creek Agreement that were set to expire, which they did. The work of that body ultimately led to the enactment of the Grand Bahama Port Area Investment Incentive Bill 2016, which Minister Darville says will create a paradigm shift in the city of Freeport.
Draft regulations and their completion that will be circulated for consultation. And I am confident that we are well on our way to establish the long talked about one-stop shop in collaboration with our stakeholders on the island, which would allow for a true partnership and ensure accountability, execution of responsibilities in accordance with international best practices. The Grand Bahama Port Authority will still have the responsibility for granting business licenses, but the new deal, the government will have the responsibility for granting concessions.
He says this bill has paved the way for an injection of more than $500 million in the local economy.
One of the leading investors on the island of Grand Bahama, Hutchison Wapore, has agreed to proceed with his $280 million Phase 5 expansion of the container port. Additionally, the exclusivity of ports on the island of Grand Bahama was lifted, which has made way for the establishment of a new cruise port on the island, which will be located in East Grand Bahama and pump in excess of $250 million in our local economy.
Minister Darville also noting that the government remains focused on tackling issues that have plagued the Grand Bahama community for many years.
Projects such as East and West potable water installation, the construction of a fire station, the Fishing Hole Road Bridge, the Spit Point Seawall, a new school in West Grand Bahama, as well as the expansion of the physical plant at the Rand Memorial Hospital to create more clinical space and bed capacity, which is in desperate need in our community.
Healthcare professionals on Grand Bahama attending the opening ceremony at the 16th Annual Educational Scientific Conference of the Grand Bahama Medical and Dental Association Wednesday evening at the Pelican Bay Hotel. Kimberly Mullings has the details.
This year's theme is Healthcare in Grand Bahama, Emerging Trends in Medicine. GBMDA President Dr. Monique Pratt urging her colleagues to take advantage of the information presented during the conference, keeping in mind that the Bahamas is about to implement universal healthcare in January 2017.
It was my endeavor to put together this year's medical conference by selecting speakers with the highest level of expertise in their respective fields, with the most current, evidence-based medical information to enhance our knowledge and keep us on the cutting edge of medicine.
Minister for Grand Bahama, the Honorable Dr. Michael Darville, officially opened the annual conference, which he says has proven to be beneficial to the local medical and dental fraternity.
Continuing education in healthcare is essential. As a matter of fact, is a part of the new mandate from the Medical Act that all of us who are practicing medicine in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas must prove to the registering body that we are upgrading our skills and we're becoming compliant with the best international practices.
Minister Darville also noting the importance of the Association of Healthcare Providers.
I'm delighted to observe and to be a part of this association that is doing great things on the island of Grand Bahama and playing an intricate role for the implementation of new treatment modalities in surgeries, internal medicine, obstetric and gynecology, and other forms of medicine.
Keynote speaker Zhivago Lang making an appeal to the health professionals to value all patients seeking their services.
A mindset that says, I'm going to offer a service that says to every person who comes in my presence, you matter. You really, really matter. So many of you are good at what you do. I urge you to be better, even best. Mediocrity is the playground of the lazy and the listless. Excellence is where professionals strive.
This year's conference climaxes with a gala banquet Saturday evening honoring Dr. Philip Thompson. Kimberly Mullings, ZNS Network News.
Medical professionals from across the island gathered at the Pelican Bay Resort for the first full day of the annual conference this morning. Cleopatra Murphy caught up with some of the presenters who discussed some of the developments taking place in the field of medicine and medical issues facing patients locally.
Gynecologic oncologist Dr. Troy Gatcliffe says with the advancements taking place in gynecologic cancer, medical professionals are moving toward more individualized medicine based on each woman's cancer. Gatcliffe was a presenter at Grand Bahama Medical and Dental Association's 16th Annual Educational Scientific Conference, where he noted because cancer varies genetically, doctors are looking for drugs to target certain genetic mutations.
For example, in ovarian cancer, many different women's ovarian cancers could be very different, and a one-size-fits-all treatment strategy is no longer the way to go forward. We are really starting to target the way we treat individual patients based on their genetic profile.
Vascular surgeon with the Public Hospitals Authority, Dr. Dalton Farquharson, says chronic venous disease, marked by inadequate flow of blood through the veins, is one of the most common vascular diseases, and it is very costly to care for patients.
The easiest thing that all of us could do is exercise. And walking is the best form of exercise for venous disease. And the research shows that if you exercise a minimum of 30 minutes a day for, 3 to 5 days a week for a minimum of 6 months, you can do well to keep your venous circulation going.
Dr. Michelle Sweeting, the clinical emergency medicine consultant for the Accident and Emergency Department of the Rand Memorial Hospital, also addressed the conference. She says the hospital has been using an emerging trend for trauma patients called Focused Assessment with Sonography in Trauma, or FAST, to evaluate patients to identify free fluid in the abdomen.
Once you've identified this free fluid, you know that there is definitely some injury that requires the patient going immediately to theater. And we found that in using this tool in the emergency room setting, that this cuts down tremendously on patient management time from entering the A&E to getting definitive management, as in surgical intervention.
Following presentations, speakers were presented with a certificate. Cleopatra Murphy, ZNS Network News.
Stay with us, there's more news after the break.